Hi, Sarita.
Hi,
So,
Jule.
hey, so we were talking about practical spirituality or our own rituals, and we were having a chat about how we came to develop our own beliefs. And so, I'll share a story of how I started and how I kind of became aware of my own intuition, which was a moment, well, it was over 10 years ago, way over 10 years ago. And I had never been into anything spiritual before that. I had always just gone through life without paying any attention to anything. And for one whole year, I started to have a pain in my stomach, like my lower stomach, like the reproductive area of my
Mm,
stomach. But it was a very subtle, it was almost like not a physical pain. It was a very subtle knowing that every time I woke up in the morning, it would send my attention into this area of my body. And I knew that there was something wrong. I just had, it was just a very deep but subtle and very quiet knowing that there was something wrong. And I ignored that feeling for 12 months easily. And it kept getting stronger and stronger. And I was like, there is definitely something wrong. And then I would just shut it down, get on with my
mm,
day, not pay any attention to it. And then one day, after about a year, my mum called from the UK and she told me she had ovarian cancer. And immediately the whole thing just shifted. I had an energy wave that just shifted up out of like that area of my body and out through my whole body, and it never came back. And my immediate thing was, it was her, it wasn't me. And
wow.
that's the first time I ever started to pay attention and go, oh, that was weird. That was
Amazing.
unusual. And
Amazing.
yeah, and so I knew, like, I knew, but I didn't know. And it appeared as an actual physical sensation or pain or what I know now was like an emotional intuition, something that
Mm,
was connected to my mother. And yeah, it immediately left. It never came back after. As soon as I realized it was her and it wasn't me. And I just find it amazing because there's some kind of like connection with, your family, your relatives, especially mothers and fathers and all of that. And that is the story of when I first started to pay attention because it was just so highly unusual and so highly strange, and nothing like that had ever happened to me before. And since then, it's just become a daily practice. Is my intuition
mm,
is one of the strongest voices in my whole life, and I've learnt to develop it over the years through various different methods. But yeah. It was a very prominent moment of before and after. Before that moment, I didn't
mm,
believe in anything like that or just didn't
mm,
pay it any attention. And
mm.
after that moment, everything changed. So,
That's an amazing story because that's undeniable, isn't it? It's like
mm,
that real experience of knowing that there's more than just what we see in this kind of 3D reality, that there's this kind of radio wave in a way that's happening between people, you know, as
yeah.
well. That's what I get from that.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. That we're all connected in these ways, and they can be subtle and they can be louder, but the more you
mm,
pay attention to it, the stronger they get, and then that becomes
mm,
like the main language. But yeah, it's
mm,
amazing how we are connected through these channels that we just are not taught. Well, I was never taught, and I was never
mm,
around people who knew that sort of thing. So I was kind
mm,
of left out of that whole, I wish I'd grown up with a family who would teach me that, but not so.
yeah. That's incredible way to really understand this other experience that's really not validated in our society. I mean, in fact, can be actively invalidated, in my experience, very practical father, for instance, who, was very, if you can't see it, it doesn't exist type of approach. And I was a pretty sensitive child. So I learnt from that I couldn't really, that wasn't something I could trust,
Yes.
that part of me,
Oh, I
which is
absolutely.
interesting.
It is, and I absolutely resonate with that as well because that was my
Mm,
experience. So how did
mm.
you come to really start to pay attention?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think it was a gradual unfolding compared to your experience, which was a quite a clear moment.
Mm.
I came to meditation sort of in my 30s, and that kind of led me to my body naturally. Um, because one of the things about your story that is highlighted for me is this idea that it's our bodies that tell us. It's not up here, it's down in here, you know? And I
Yeah.
remember some of the earliest experience of meditation groups and different things I was doing, and just being able to access my breathing and my body was profound. And how I became aware of not only a different identity, but also how I really felt about things and how it was more calm. My mind was very chaotic, and my life was chaotic because it was all being driven from this chaotic mind. So that in terms of experiences, it was profound in that way. And I think looking back now, it's really clear to me that I was starting to learn that my body was telling me what I needed to know. And it was a bit of a journey. I think it is for everyone.
Yeah, it takes many years. It's not just something, although my moment of awareness was quite abrupt, the rest of the development happened over many years, just as
Mm,
you mentioned, and like gradually then over many years. But yeah,
mm,
I also, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It absolutely is a disconnection from body or a disconnection from wholeness of mind, body, and everything being connected. And we are trained or conditioned to live so much in our heads and be very
exactly.
cognitive and
Mm,
very, yeah, it does make sense that we've lost that connection. And so it's amazing. Yeah, it feels very like as you were talking about that, I could feel the grounding, happening. And that's what it is. It is. And these words are so overused these days, but they are so true as well. The
mm,
grounding is very important.
mm, exactly. And it really is something we need to invite ourselves into, and experiment with. Um, because, of course, I don't know about your experience, but my experience was very much there was a lot in my body that wasn't so comfortable to be experiencing as well, I think that happens a lot. And it
Yes.
can be quite confronting to start to experience yourself a bit more connected, mind, body, and whatever else, like your senses become. I remember doing meditation retreats, and I would really start to feel my senses heightened. I could
Mm,
see better, or it felt, or I could hear more, or yeah, there was a subtlety that started to come into my experience as well. So, it's not all bad in the sense of it being confronting, but it's a whole new world, really.
it is, and it's so non-linear. And often people say, how have you got to this point? How did you heal, past things, or how did you develop intuition or develop practices? But it is not linear, and we all come to it so differently and in such complex ways that it's very hard to make neat sentences to explain the process. So again, I understand completely what you mean when you say that. It is developed sometimes by micro experiences, but hundreds of times over years.
I
And
love
it's
that. Micro experiences, that's
yeah,
perfect to
and
describe my experience anyway.
yeah, well, same. They're micro experiences, and when you tell them in isolation, they sound so non-eventful, you know? They
Mm.
sound like such minor things, but when they repeat for so many years, the synchronicities or little intuitive hits that then end up being proved right at a later date, and they all add up. So it's a very hard thing to talk about, which is why I think it's nice that we're trying to explain it and how
That's
we
it.
do come to it from such different ways, because
Yeah.
that's just life, and that's what being human is. It isn't a
Mm.
linear path. It's not something that you can write a guidebook for or tell
No,
somebody.
such an individual. I like using words like exploration, you know. I like using words like, bringing your experience back to yourself,
Yeah.
these kinds of things where it's not, there's no result or there's no, we live in a world where we're so results oriented, we're so, as you say, linear and outcome focused and, ticks box focused and those sorts of things. And it's like, we're entering this whole enchanted garden in a way of our interiority, like how do I work? Who am I really? And asking ourselves those questions I mean, there's often some external pressures during that sort of journey, for want of a better word. So we're kind of grappling with, how do we solve these problems that we're facing, but and trying to stay with the just the experiencing of it. Is that making sense?
Yes, it
Like not putting pressure on ourselves that we've got to solve all these things so that the problems are no longer there, type of thing.
absolutely. And also realizing that it's very messy in parts. It can be very messy as you're transitioning from that. And as you say, the external experiences or just what we might be attending to in our lives, it doesn't always, it's not a magic switch that just fixes everything. And that space can be very messy because how we learn is through experience. So sometimes we need the same experience repeatedly, but we just do it slightly different each time. So the journey is at the end of that, then we are, you know, we've learned the correct way, but there may have been 10 times before that where we didn't quite get it right. And that's
And
part of it.
and life keeps giving us these experiences or these things that we're pushing up against or that we're embracing, either or,
Mm,
because both things can teach, right?
yeah,
And so it's about, understanding that I'm here in this situation and where am I experiencing it? Am
yes,
I experiencing it just up here, or do I want to bring that experience, which can be very challenging if it's chaotic,
yeah,
bring that experience into the whole of me to
yes.
integrate or to process or whatever that might be.
Absolutely. And you said like it can be chaotic because when you've suppressed or dissociated from those feelings in your body and all of those sensations, you can't just let the good ones in. Once
Mm.
you unlock that,
That's it.
it all comes out and there's not
That's it.
so
Yeah.
that's why it can feel like, people say flooding and it can feel like that. So again, like not rushing the whole process of learning new things or trying to change your neural pathways or change your relationship to how you show up in the world. It can't be rushed because it would just be a big mess, I think, if it's not something you can do in a week or two or a month or two. It's
Yeah.
a lifelong process. And I think that's why some of us need support. When you first turn that on, like you said, like it was just very um you it was just new to you to feel that in your body and then have that understanding that emotions live in your body or intuition lives in your body, emotional sensations. So yeah, I think we need support through that. I wish I'd had some more support through that of someone to say, actually, that makes sense. It makes sense why you feel like that today, or it makes sense why you have that strange feeling in your stomach. Because that was all
And
new
it's
to me.
and whenever we're new at anything, I know for me and with a lot of clients too, the default program in us is to make ourselves wrong.
Mm.
I don't know enough, or why is this happening to me, or I haven't done it right, or whatever
Mm,
that inner judge is saying. It's very disorienting to have the mind come in and start to play that old recording
hmm.
when we're having these new experiences, mm, in whatever way they're showing up.
Yeah.
And to build a kind of support within ourselves, we do need that support externally
Yes. Yeah,
to kind of
absolutely.
say, I know what you mean, and there's more to this life than what we can see, in the everyday. As your experience very clearly showed, we're very interconnected. We're influenced by what is collectively happening, what's happening to our closest people in our lives, all of that stuff. It's a bit of a maze.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's a huge maze. And you're saying yeah, we both mentioned like it's important to have external kind of reflection to go, that makes sense. But if you're around the wrong people, you actually get the opposite. And you get
That's
people to
it.
say, well, no, that's just silly, or don't be so crazy. And so it's really, really difficult. It just shows how difficult it is because when you start to go inward and start to be aware of all the things that used to be automatic, all the choices that you made, the reactions that you have, the way that you make decisions, and then you're trying to bring that internally, but you don't trust yourself yet. And then you try and say it externally because you're exploring, and then someone reflects it back in a shaming way or a
Yeah,
critical way. That's
yeah,
so damaging as
yeah.
well. And it can
Awful.
set us back quite
Yeah.
a long time. And sometimes we might put that to the side for a few months or a few years before
Mm.
another event go happens to us and we go, oh, actually, no, that does make sense. That's kind of, I intuitively knew that. I'm going to explore that again. And then the next time you might say it to someone and then they'll reflect it back in a really positive way and go, yes, that happened to me. And you go, okay, I'm not crazy. And so it's such a pathway and it's just so complex depending on who you surround yourself with, or,
Yeah.
even family members who don't believe that sort of thing, or,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. It can be very isolated, this whole journey, because of how the dynamic between those ourselves and those people around us that we're closest to might view how we're experiencing ourselves, when no one
Mm,
likes change.
mm,
And so you can
yes.
be up against all the, what's wrong with you? Why are you suddenly being like this, or
Yes. And I think we've both
what are you
had that,
talking
haven't we?
about?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Or stop with all the psychology. I get stop trying to analyze it. I'm not really. I'm just trying to explain my experience so that I can understand your experience.
That's it. That's it. So it's like really arriving. Often I explain it this way to myself and to others as, it's like arriving in a new country
Mm,
with a different language. And when you arrive, if you're a traveler, or even if you've just gone to a different state, but let alone, different country, you don't suddenly just bowl out the door of the hotel or your accommodation and just go right. Well, some people might, some brave people might, but go bowling around and just figure it out. And you might sit down and find a cafe, have a coffee, look at your map, slowly decide where your points might be for reference, who you might go and see, or where you might touch base, maybe the local tourist bureau or whatever it is, So it's really about the pace
mm,
somehow, when we start to realize things, we want to be in a hurry to find out, but the
yes,
pace is important.
it
And
is.
how do we slow down the pace?
Yeah, because slow is the key word. That's what I was just going to say. If it's fast, it's wrong, in my opinion. If it's urgent,
Mm,
it's definitely wrong.
mm,
Slowness and quietness is usually more correct in my opinion. Yeah, certainly urgency is a red flag. And that's one of the mistakes that I made when I along my big journey that's taken many, many, many years is when I first got really excited about, intuition or tapping into these invisible connections that I wasn't aware of before, whether it be with other people or with nature or things, bigger things than us. It was it was looking like my two mistakes that I made was escapism, going too
Mm,
much into that,
mm,
at the detriment to practical life things. And the
mm,
second mistake that I made was trying to overly look for signs or synchronicities and trying to focus on it too much because you can't force that. And sometimes I'd go out and go, I want a new synchronicity every day. And then I'd be really trying to look for it. And that was just such a mistake that I made because that's just not how it works. I'm sure you know that's not how any of this works. So I
yes.
did go through a little phase
Yeah.
of, either being too much into it or trying to look for signs and synchronicities too much and put an
Mm,
overemphasis on symbolism or, you know, connections. You know what
mm.
I'm trying to say?
Yes, I do. It's that I think that I'd like to bring in the instinctual brain into this just for a minute because it's tricky. The instinctual brain, we know it's pre-thought. We know that it has its way in our lives, and quite rightly so. We want that to work because that
Mm,
keeps us safe. But I think what it can do is have us looking for things or safety or like-minded people or whatever. What am I trying to say? Like-minded people, safety, um, get the job done, let's
yeah.
get to the bottom of it quickly. All of that, and to your point about urgency,
Mm,
urgency equates to being in instinctual kind of alarm mode to me.
yes,
And so
absolutely.
then you've got that sort of that part of your brain that we cannot control and we shouldn't control because it's responsible for us, you know, ducking under a table and then wondering what the loud noise was. It's
Mm,
so pre-thought. So watching those signs that we're in that part of us is so important in the journey.
yes. Yeah, it really is. And that was, yeah, it's one of the most important things is understanding your own reactions, what part of the body they come from, because anxiety and fear often is very much for me up here. Whereas the intuitive just knowings are very much lower down in
Yeah,
my
I
body.
would agree with that. I would
Yeah.
agree with that in my experience too.
And then noticing the subtle and it like you can feel certain energies or feelings like move through the body. So if it's fast and it's rising upwards and then it stays here, I know it's I'm being triggered by something. It's not, and it's fear-based, I would say. It's definitely fear-based. So, yeah, that's hard to know because when you first start the journey, like you mentioned, before, like you first open up that connection between mind and body and everything comes out, and then you don't have the language for it, so you don't know. So you can start to feel fear, and then you're like, oh, I shouldn't do that because I'm scared. That means it's telling me I'm wrong, but actually, it's a trigger that you could overcome, actually. It's an old part of you that could be updated and it's coming up to be processed, not to tell you it's the wrong thing. But how do you know that when a
That's
true,
it.
a true, but that's the difference. A true warning or fear warning for me would be much deeper in my stomach
Hmm.
and not as fast. It would be slow and it would be like, something's wrong instead of, something's wrong. You know, it's a
That's
different,
it.
and you have to learn your own body and your own system. And I've spent years learning my own system. And I try and help people through that, but I also understand that there's no information in a short time that I could give anybody because it's your own personal journey, and I can only guide and point people into. certain, I don't know, certain areas of knowledge, but it's still
Mm,
got to be an experiential process that somebody experiences for themselves to learn their own system. So it's
yes.
very complex.
It's complex and yet not. In
Yes,
my experience, like it's like if I stay up here, it's complex.
yes,
If I continue to come down into my body, as challenging as that can be, I've found over the years that it becomes more, I won't say the word simple,
mm,
but I'm in touch with some other wisdom,
yes,
intuition, or just relaxed understanding. I don't know what else I could call it. But I've got access to more information,
yes,
actually.
absolutely.
I'm not
Yeah.
kind of tunneling it all, trying to work it all out with this very efficient problem solver, but not exactly a strategic thinker. I
Mm,
think that the body is another resource for us.
mm. Yeah, the body is the one of the most important things in my opinion, and something that I completely ignored for probably 30 years.
Oh,
You
me
know,
too.
easily
Me
30
too.
years
Yeah.
as something that I just wasn't interested in or paid any
Mm,
attention to. But no, you're right. It's everything's in the body, everything, and it's the first thing I go to. Like it's so finely tuned in my system now, and we all have our different ways of doing that. But for me, um yeah, I've mapped my entire system so I can visually just go to any part of it. And a thing that helped me a lot with that was learning, some psychotherapies like the internal family systems, IFS, with the parts. So I talk to my parts every day and I understand intricately now each one. So like if I
mm,
have an anxiety part that comes in, I'll immediately know it's that part. So I can visualize the character of it. That's just how I do it. Not everyone has to do it like that. So yeah, complicated and simple. It's so simple as it's just automatic for me now. I don't have to think about it too much. I just immediately go there. I know exactly where it is in my body and what it means and how to work with it, but complicated in the fact that it takes a long time to visualize the system, I think. And how do you do it?
mm,
Because I'm a very visual person, so I literally have a visual images of the inside of my
mm,
psyche with different
mm,
parts and different
mm.
areas that are connected to different emotions. I use some of the traditional Chinese medicine meridian system for that as well. So how do
Oh,
you do like how do you go into your body and understand the language of your own body?
for me, it has been more spontaneous. I wouldn't say spontaneous. So the evolution for myself is to understand, firstly, that I'm getting direct feedback.
Mm,
Whatever's happening, whatever discomfort, and it's usually discomfort, right? It's like the feedback system is usually through pain. Initially, for me, it was like, that doesn't feel good. My stomach doesn't work properly. This is my back hurts. I have no energy, or um, whatever it might be. The experience of my body was uncomfortable.
hmm.
And the learning for me was that if I did certain things, my body felt comfortable. So I would explore what that
Ah, oh,
was,
that's so interesting.
for instance, movement, like free movement,
Mm,
like free dance for me
yes.
was really, really helpful because, of course, I love music and I love dancing. So I went to what was easy for
Mm.
me. And that I found over time made me more comfortable in my body and not, um, I think the alarm system calmed down a little bit so that if there was pain or discomfort in the body, the alarm system wasn't going off as much.
Mm.
So
Yes.
I was able to stay with it and get more information.
Yes. Yes. And how did you get the information? Like, how did you understand that, like, the pain? which then eased with movement or free dance, how did you understand what the pain was?
There was a dialogue. There is a dialogue that opens up. And it's a spontaneous kind of understanding dialogue. It has its own language
Mm,
in my experience. So I was becoming closer, having a closer relationship with my body.
mm,
And therefore, for want of a better word, speaking to me, but not so much in, well, sometimes in words.
yeah.
So I've learnt over time that movement, whatever that looks like, kind of gives me direct feedback or gives me an understanding if there's a problem or if there's something I want to understand more about my life or myself,
Mm,
or even situations with other people,
mm,
maybe relationship situations. I'll just come to an understanding, and I know that it's my body helping me come to that
yeah.
understanding. It's not so much trying to work it out with my mind.
Yes.
And the key for me, having had an upbringing well, like a lot of people, activated my nervous system
Mm,
so that it wired itself to be quite highly activated all my life, coming
mm,
out as anxiety mainly, depression sometimes. Um, that that whole system got to calm down enough, right, so that I
mm,
could access all this information.
yeah.
Because when that system's running, nothing else can get in. It's like
Yeah.
bombarding the airways with a lot of, radio stations so that you
Yes.
can't get a clear signal type of thing.
Absolutely. And this is why it's so interesting and so fascinating to talk about how we each experience it. And I know I've said it a few times, but there is no one right way.
No.
So I love how you explained your process and how it feels like very experimental, like you just had to experiment over time with, you know, moving in different ways and it would change maybe the sensation in your body, or you'd start to have a dialogue with it and it would tell you some information, whether that be in a language or through some other way. You just got to intuitively know what your body was saying. And for me, I needed a framework to be able to understand the system because my that's just how my brain works, like a neurodivergent. So I needed a framework. But then now that I've learned the framework, it's gone into I don't need the framework. So it's really so yours feels like experimental, like very um somatic and everything like that. I needed a framework to put it into my body to then be able to get to that point. You know what I mean?
And I do. And I also needed a form of framework.
Mm,
And I think the framework for me was very much about understanding that through, inner child work or
yeah,
breath work.
yeah,
I had lots of help in those areas and learned a lot through actually doing those things with myself and then learning about them intellectually, of course,
yes.
and then coming to, hypnosis, which is a great tool to use for accessing thoughts, and changing those thoughts, and therefore changing our neurology and how the brain is wired. All of that stuff resonated for me. All that
Mm.
neuroscience stuff really made sense to me, but it came after the actual
Yes.
experiencing for me,
Which for me,
interestingly.
this is why it
Yeah.
is so interesting that we've just discovered that about each other, because mine had to be the opposite because I didn't
Yes.
believe it until
Yes, of
I could
course.
understand it in an intellectual, cognitive way, and then I could experiment with it, and then it proved it through that. So it's the complete, like almost opposite way. But I think
Yeah.
we've both come, it sounds like we've
Just
both come to
proves
the
that,
same place that we don't need
yes,
any of that. It just becomes so intuitive and so natural and so automatic that you get to the point where you just understand yourself so inherently that you don't need the framework anymore. That's the point I'm at anyways. I'm not sure if
yes.
you're the
And
same.
I,
Yeah.
I, I feel I'm at that point too. And
Yeah.
And with the training through the work that I do and the different things I've learned
Mm,
has really crystallized all of that experiencing. And so
yes.
that what I've come to understand is that I understand how this organism works
Mm,
that I'm inhabiting,
yes.
both my mind, how brilliant it is, and my body, how brilliant that is, and how they might work together, and how inherently, and this is the big thing, I think, for me, Jule, is how brilliant it is. How, if you learn about it and you know how it works, like you say, you can map, you become in awe of this just brilliant system, which you
Yes.
can then lean into more,
That's right. Yeah. And
use for yourself.
that's right. And we develop our own language. So I still use the parts language because that just works for me because I've been able to create all the different characters. But yeah, it's so inherent. It just becomes so inherent. But I definitely needed some of the framework at the beginning like just to give a real life practical example. For example, the meridian system in traditional Chinese medicine, like in your feet, there's a lot of kidney things, which is a lot of fear. So that was one of my things that kept coming up was fear. And I would have problems with my feet. And then when I had to look that up intellectually and go, what does that mean in the meridian system? And it would be like, oh, that's your kidney meridian. And then I could massage that area or do some kind of like acupressure or something on that area. And massage, so I'm sure you understand all of these things. But I had to know that for me to then understand that for me to believe that sensations and somatic experiences in my body meant something. Do you know what I mean? Like
I do,
I
I
had to
do. And I
know
was,
the knowledge.
yes, yeah, I was, and that's, as you pointed out, the body work that I used to do was a really important part of my understanding for myself. Being a body worker on other people
Mm,
was so helpful because I started to understand my experience by experiencing other people's bodies and how they were experiencing them, which was kind of this, to your point about interconnectedness, how we're all connected. Things that were happening for people on the massage table, I
mm.
could really felt connected to their experience. So this was helping me understand mine.
Oh wow. What, so
That's
you
why I
could
think, like connecting and sharing is so healing.
Oh, it's so healing. Yeah. We live in a relational field, and that's an invisible
Totally.
thing that lives between
Yeah.
us. But we are all relational, and whether that be with other humans or animals or,
Mm.
nature, we are all so interconnected. And it's, yeah, there's so much peace and calmness and joy to be found in those invisible connections. I think that's why I'm so passionate about the non-tangible things now, in life.
Yes. And I'm still learning so much.
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
still, um, understanding myself, and then I'll forget to do my embodiment practice, and then I'll have a headache or I'll be confused for a
Mm.
day or something, and something will jog my memory and think, what's been happening, what are you doing, what haven't you
Mm.
been doing, have you been supporting yourself with what you like to do, so for yourself, right?
Mm.
So, it's this constant
Yeah, it is.
being with, going, being a bit separated, coming back, being separated, coming back.
Absolutely. And those are those micro experiences that we were talking about earlier, because the ones where you don't do something and then understand the impact of that are just as important as the ones where you do something and it works out. So yeah, I love that. That was a great example of like, yeah, when you kind of get a bit, blasé and you kind of get a bit like, "Oh, I don't need to do that anymore." And then something will put you right back into actually you do because the reason that you're doing it is to prevent this. So
That's it.
they're so important. It's like little confirmation that actually it is important and it strengthens those beliefs over time. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
always fascinating those times where you get a bit lapse or you go, I can't be bothered or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, um, I guess, what we're sharing about here to sort of summarize a little bit where we're at here is to sort of say we've both had our journeys and all roads lead to the same thing,
Yes.
no matter what it is, and you can't make a mistake
No, because the mistakes
because
are
there's
important. They're
exactly. So
almost the
by their
most
very nature,
important.
could they be termed mistakes? Because
Yeah.
everything's nudging us all the time.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's one of the biggest things that I found too is we all come to the same place. And also all modalities, whatever they may be, whether they be in the spiritual sphere or the more therapeutic sciencey sphere, not all of them, but the ones that work, all come to the same place as well. So, you've got massage, hypnosis, counseling, all sorts of other things, I'm sure. Um, but we all actually they do the same thing.
that's it.
They're just different languages, so you can't really make a mistake. It is just a practice that has to be developed over time. There's no shortcuts, I think. But
And
we do
different
all end
things
up
work
in the
at
same
different
place. They
times.
do,
The
yeah.
the regression work I do sometimes works for people. Dream work,
Oh, yeah, dreams are
dream
my
work's
main
so
thing.
important.
Dream work is my main thing that I would use now every day. Every single day, I connect with my dreams and
Mm.
connect with many, many other people on their own dreams as well. It's one of the most important practices I have now,
Mm.
dream work. And at
And
the
this
beginning, I
whole
didn't know about that. So sorry, like yeah, I
no,
wasn't
no,
aware
no.
of that at all. So that has developed over time as well.
I'm aware that we've got stories that tell us who we are.
Mm,
Ancient peoples had stories
mm,
that guided their societies.
mm.
And on an individual level, we have our own stories, our own themes, our own ways in which our brilliant minds categorize or encapsulate our experiences and
Yes.
how we tap into that which we can't see so easily, this connectedness to all that is and all that possibility right there. And
Yeah. And there's no right or wrong. And like, so that's why I kind of get, irritated sometimes by the people that are very strong and they're like, you have to do it this way. And, this is
mm,
the only way. Because we are all so different. And there's no point trying to abandon your own natural skill set, like if you want to intellectualize about something, do that. I would say that's a natural thing, do that. But also you have to connect it into the somatic stuff too. Don't ignore that. You can't just live in one area, but there's no point trying to force yourself into a process when you don't understand it. If you need to understand something first, then go ahead and understand it, but then make it whole. Then
that's
make all the
it.
connections.
It's coming into that experiencing, isn't it?
Yes,
It's
exactly.
the experience part of learning is just, I think, can't be understated.
No, it's an experience. We're here for an experience, and knowledge alone will never do anything. But sometimes you need a lot of knowledge to be able to get there. So,
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, all roads lead to ourselves.
yeah, to ourselves and those invisible connections, the intangible, I think, things that we aren't, well, I was never taught. So, yeah.
That's it. Those intangible things.
Intangible
Exactly.
things, whether it's an intangible connection that you haven't made physical yet within yourself, or whether it's in the relational field with another person, or
Mm,
with whatever your beliefs are with the higher kind of bigger things as well. But it's all
yeah,
intangible, The dream world is intangible. There's no physical thing in a dream. It's all it completely exists in a invisible intangible realm, but they are so important. So if those things are important, then everything in that field is important.
And the symbolism and the ritual and the magical and the mysterious and the I don't know.
Yeah, which again we have to create ourselves because there are no universal symbols. We have to create our own language of symbolism based on our own life experiences as well. So,
Yeah, yes. All leading us home
mm, leading us
to
to our
ourselves.
own, yeah, to learn our own language and understand our place in this world, I guess. How
That's it.
how are we by ourselves, but how are we in relation to every other thing? And how do we all exist in that space together?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good.
Well, it's a beautiful conversation. I could talk about so many more things for
Well, I think we
so much
should, and
longer.
we will.
We will. Because yeah, there's so many different areas of this that we could go into. But
Mm,
I think that's a lovely start to the conversation.
likewise. Thanks, Jule.
Thank you, Sarita. Lovely to talk to you.
Likewise.